Hi, I'm Angus Mackenzie, Editor-in-Chief of Motor Trend, and I'm here in the shipping lot at Suzuki's Sagara plant just south of Tokyo. Why am I here? To collect a Suzuki Kizashi sedan to drive back to Los Angeles. Did I just say drive? That's right. Over the next month, the Motor Trend crew will be taking a pair of Kizashis on a 10,000-mile road trip through Japan, Russia, Canada, and down the west coast of the United States back to Motor Trend headquarters in El Segundo, California. It's going to be quite an adventure, which is why we're calling it Tokyo to LA the hard way. Our stop tonight is Kyoto, Japan's ancient capital. So let's get started. Our trip begins with a tour of the small but fascinating Suzuki Plaza at Hamamatsu. It's part museum and part educational facility that cleverly explains how automobiles are designed, engineered and assembled. It turns out road trips are part of Suzuki's history. The very first prototype Suzuki automobile, a tiny front-drive two-stroke powered sedan, was driven from Hamamatsu to Tokyo in 1954 to prove its durability. Suzuki's focus on very small cars and trucks has made it prosperous in Japan and a big player in emerging markets like India. But executives in Hamamatsu realize the company needs to literally expand its product portfolio. That's why the mid-sized Kizashi is such an important car. Well, we're heading out from Hamamatsu, Suzuki's hometown, and we're on the Tomei Expressway. In fact, we've just gone past Nagoya, where Toyota headquarters is. And we're heading towards Kyoto. And what are we driving? Well, we have a pair of Suzuki Kizashi SLS models. 2.4-litre engine under the hood, 4 cylinders, 180 horsepower, because it's driving all 4 wheels through the Suzuki CVT transmission. The cars are stock US spec models with a couple of important changes. First, the wheels. They have 17-inch alloy wheels and Russian specification tyres. This is because we're expecting some pretty rough roads when we get into Siberia, and the Russian spec tyres have a much stronger sidewall. We've also made a few minor modifications underneath to protect the car from damage from rocks and lumps and bumps in the road. But other than that, these are pretty much Kizashis you can buy straight out of your friendly local Suzuki dealer. Our 140-mile run to Kyoto is pretty much all a leisurely cruise along the expressway. But we're just easing ourselves into the journey. After all, this time next week, we'll be somewhere in eastern Siberia. Well, here we are in Kyoto after a fairly uneventful run along the freeway from Hamamatsu. Tomorrow we're going to a place called Kurashiki. For now though, it's time to get some rest, and we're checking into this traditional Japanese ryokan. It's Tokyo to LA the hard way, day 2, and we're about to leave Kyoto, Japan's ancient capital and city of 1,000 temples. We're heading for Kurashiki, looping around the inland sea past some of the marvels of Japan, including a 12th century castle and an engineering wonder built 900 years later. It's a 200-odd mile drive and it's going to be an interesting one. So let's go. Guidebook lore says Kyoto has 2,000 temples, and it doesn't take us long to find a couple on the way out of town. Kyoto was Japan's capital city and cultural epicenter for more than 1,000 years and was spared bombing during World War II, so many of the temples are among the oldest buildings in the country. The 394-foot main hall at the Sanjusangendo Temple is Japan's longest wooden building and dates back to 1266. Well, we've arrived in Himeji, and behind me is the world-famous castle that dominates the town. It's a national treasure here in Japan and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Let's take a quick look around. The walls of this castle are truly massive. This place was meant to be a key defensive position. In fact, there's a storage building here in the castle grounds to hold rice, salt, and of course a well for water. As you can see, there's some fairly extensive restoration work going on here at Himeji Castle. But that's okay, because the castle was completed in 1609, 15 years before the Dutch settled on Manhattan. Well, we've just had a look at an amazing piece of Japan's past, and we're about to have a look at a stunning piece of Japan's present, which is appropriate really because Kizashi means in Japanese, something great is coming. We're now crossing the Pearl Bridge, which links the city of Kobe with Awaji Island on Japan's inland sea. This bridge has the longest central span of any suspension bridge in the world at 6,500 feet, and it's over 12,800 feet in length overall. This massive engineering marvel has been built to withstand typhoon winds of up to 180 miles an hour, and importantly in this area, earthquakes measuring up to 8.5 on the Richter scale. What you don't appreciate from here is just how big this bridge is. Those two towers are more than a mile apart. It makes the Golden Gate Bridge look like a scale model. The loop around the inland sea transports us back to the 21st century in a hurry. Not literally though. Japan's expressway system is a modern engineering marvel, but speed limits are absurdly low, 50 or 60 miles an hour, and no one seems to drive much faster, even when traffic is light. Our Kizashi hums along at 70 with its 2.4-litre engine turning barely 2100 RPM. The Russian-spec Yokohama tyres are a little noisy on the Japanese tarmac, and the CVT transmission takes its time to spool up. But otherwise, the Suzuki is a comfortable cruiser at these relaxed velocities. Well, it's the end of day 2, and after a 200-mile loop around the inland sea, we've arrived at Kurashiki. Tonight, we're staying in another traditional ryokan, and tomorrow, we get off the freeway and onto the back roads. We've already seen a lot of Japan few tourists see. On today's drive, we're heading right off the beaten track, taking winding 2 lanes clear across western Honshu. Well, we've just left the freeway, and this is significant because the next time we see a dual carriageway will be in Alaska, more than 3,200 miles away. We're in the mountainous Okayama region of Japan, and the roads are starting to get very interesting. Check this out. On Route 180, which hugs the Takahashi River, we head along a valley that, in places, narrows to a steep, rock-faced gorge. The landscape looks eerily like parts of northern Italy, with paddy fields. We follow Route 180 to the village of Kofu, where we make a hard right onto Route 482 and almost immediately start climbing. We're working our way up towards the 5,700-foot Mount Dyson, an old volcano that boasts a ski resort and a tight and twisting road on its western flank. From the west, Mount Dyson looks like the volcano from central casting, its cinder cone gently tapering out from the caldera. But a 7.3 magnitude earthquake 10 years ago has left it in a fragile state. Climbers are now forbidden to ascend to the peak, and we cross a couple of huge newly constructed concrete sluices that appear to be designed to allow rubble to tumble to the valley below without destroying the road. The road is empty, and we've left the villagers behind. Time for some fun. The 2.4-litre engine develops 180 horsepower, and it's a pretty willing worker. But for this country, you need to slip the CVT into manual mode. That allows you to use the paddle shifts to keep the engine in the torque band. That gets you out of the corners better. I've also switched Suzuki's unique switchable all-wheel drive system from two-wheel drive, which is what I was using on the freeway, to four-wheel drive here. It just gives the car a little more composure through the corners and a little more traction out of it. We work our way down to the coast, past brilliant green paddy fields terraced into the rich volcanic soil. Our destination tonight is Seifuso, a truly delightful ryokan tucked up an impossibly narrow lane in Tamatsukuri, a village famous among the locals for its hot springs. After 3 days and more than 560 miles, we've reached the end of the first leg of Tokyo to LA the hard way. Our journey started at Suzuki headquarters in Hamamatsu. We visited Kyoto, Japan's ancient capital, saw the amazing Himeji Castle, and drove the stunning expressway that island hops around the inland sea. We got off the freeways too and drove through backcountry that few tourists will ever see when they come to Japan. We're at the port of Sakai Minato, where the Suzuki Kizashi will be loaded on a ferry and shipped to Vladivostok for the next leg of our journey. So it's goodbye from me and over to Ed Lowe.